Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name is Rubidium. Today we are talking about this camera, or these three cameras I should say. This is the Apple iPhone 11 Pro. I wanted to see how it stacks up against my cinema camera, the Canon C200, as a video camera. Everyone has talked a lot about how sharp and beautiful and what a quantum leap the stills camera of this phone is, but what about video? Has Apple been able to pull off the same coup as the stills camera and deliver something that looks amazing? Let's find out. So I tried the iPhone against the C200 in a variety of different scenarios, the kind of things that pop up making a film. Outdoor, indoor, artificial light, natural light, movement, color, all these sort of things. And what I found will shock you. No, that's total clickbait. This is not a very good video camera. What I found that while this camera can produce good video, it does so in a very limited set of circumstances, and that in most of the scenarios where you'll be shooting movies indoors lit by artificial light, this isn't a great video camera. The iPhone really falls over because of the processing, because of the sensor size, because of the lens size. This is the lens of the C200. As you can see, this is a Rokinon 85 Cine lens, has a big dilating aperture here, so I can focus all of that light onto the sensor. The poor iPhone has neither of those things. It has these lenses on the front, which actually do help a lot since the last iPhone I owned, which was the 7. The size of the camera is tiny. It's like the whole camera array would probably fit on the end of your thumb. So to pull out good shots, this camera needs to use a lot of boost. It needs to push up the levels of light in your films in order to see something. It does that by creating digital noise, and it doesn't look great. Cell phones also have real trouble producing bokeh, or shallow depth of field. This is because the sensor size is so small and there really isn't room to use light in the way that lenses use them to give that shallow depth of field. The stills camera gets around this by blurring the background in post. You can't really do that with a video camera. At least the processing power of a phone can't do that in any way that's real time and useful. So you end up with razor sharp, all the way across the board, super noisy images. The first scenario I did was daytime exterior, kind of a doorway light. It looked okay. I would call this a passable shot. As you can see, the iPhone really struggled, whereas the C200 looked more than passable. It wasn't until we got inside with bright lights that the iPhone image really fell apart. Here you see this one lit by the Hudson Spider Mozzie, which is a new light I'm using and really love. C200 looks amazing. The iPhone 11 Pro, really struggles. It's got heaps of digital noise in there. The MPEG color depth really crunches up the skin tones and gives you these weird blotchy areas. It doesn't make it look very natural or very pleasing to the eye. Then we moved on to a color dancing setup. As you can see, the C200 handles the color beautifully, as you would expect we shot this real time, so 12-bit RAW. Whereas the iPhone blows out almost immediately. You just get 100% red and 100% blue, even though these weren't particularly bright on set. Here we have a backlit image with some return bounce for lighting the subject. This one didn't do too badly with the iPhone because it's daylight coming in, so it was really bright. I think I had 4 stops of ND on the camera. But you see the color depth isn't there. It's all sort of like washed with one color because of the MP4 compression. Outdoors, and especially moving, is where this camera or phone really comes into its own. Apple has built the chip and the processing of the video to shoot exactly this sort of scenario. So it holds the detail in the sky, it exposes really well. I used the Benro phone gimbal to get the iPhone version of the shot. Super stable, really impressive. The phone itself has pretty good inbuilt stability and stabilization for moving shots, but when you throw this on a less than $200 gimbal, you get something that looks like it's right out of a music video. It's beautiful. way better to move with and to shoot on in this type of shot than even a cinema camera, because it's so light. It's easy to control, and like I said, if you have the right conditions, which is an overcast day or early morning or near magic hour, this phone really can shoot some beautiful, beautiful footage. The small sensor size can be overcome through, choice and all these other things. It's great to have that super wide 13mm lens as well as the, close-up portrait lens. It gives it much more versatility as a camera. The biggest problem with this phone remains the MPEG-4 compression. Even shooting Filmic Pro, which yes isn't optimized as I'm filming this for the 11 Pro, at 100 megabits a second, it's still compressed. It's still MPEG-4, H.264, very lossy, and really washes out your colors, washes out your detail, adds a bunch of compression. It's just not great footage. It's sort of what we shot on DSLRs 10 years ago. The cinema world and digital cinema cameras have taken leaps and bounds since then, but a 2019 iPhone is still shooting MPEG-4. It's crazy. Apple is trying to get around this. They are suing Red to invalidate Red's patents on RAW capture. Basically, Red has a patent on RAW capture that Apple thinks are invalid because rather than doing something to an image, they've patented not doing something to an image, meaning capturing it raw or compressing it in a certain way. I don't know how Canon gets around this, if they do. I don't know how Blackmagic gets around this. I know that Atomos's ProRes RAW, which obviously is done in companion with Apple, does actually, they were sued by Red when they came out with that, and rather than fight, they settled, and now they pay a percentage of their sales to Red as a royalty. Obviously, Apple's going to sell hundreds of millions of iPhones. They don't want to give Red a cut of all of that money. They could just go out and buy Red, I guess, but maybe they don't think it's worth what Red is asking. So they're trying to get around the patents Red has, and hopefully in the iPhone 2020, was that iPhone 12, 11 Plus, there will be some way to capture moving footage RAW in the same way that this camera captures RAW, and the same way that this phone captures stills images as RAW, or you can get that as an option. That is my look at the iPhone 11 Pro filmmaking ability, which, spoiler alert, I was not that impressed by, or isn't that impressive in interior artificially lit situations. Wonderful outside. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you next time.